I'm just appending this bit on the beginning of my first daily news video for the day because it keeps getting restricted, even though I blurred out little pinpricks on the videos showing cluster munitions exploding in a field. Like, I just don't understand what I do. I think they're automatic bots that scrape videos are looking for videos of equipment being blown up from above, sort of drones doing their thing, or missiles hitting, and so they have a certain kind of understanding of what war footage looks like, and as soon as something that approximates that is on the screen, it will just automatically flag it, and then you have to go through an appeal process, but the appeal process takes 3 days, and so therefore I can't appeal that and get the video out that day, which my video is really topical. And on this coming video, there are just I've paused it. There you don't see anyone dying. There's no explosions there are just some puffs over fields, and yeah, it's flagging that. Anyway, I wanted to take this opportunity to say YouTube at the moment is deleting just torrents and torrents of really fine, no problem comments. A bit like what the bots do in terms of looking at footage. The bots are doing that in terms of cutting out comments, and I don't know why. What I would suggest is that at the top of a thread that you will see, in fact, let's go and show that now. So if we go onto one of my videos, if you go to the comments thread, they are automatically sorted by top comments, which means it automatically will filter out a load of comments kind of randomly that doesn't seem as top. If you go to newest first, then it will put all of the comments in there rather than just top comments. So sometimes people think their comments have been deleted, but it's not that they've been deleted, it's because they're sorted by top comments as opposed to newest first. And that throws around the chronology and even cuts a bunch out. Go to newest first, or sometimes flip between the two, and if you keep flipping between the two, yours might come back. So sometimes I get on my YouTube studio something like somebody posting like 5 comments that are the same because they think they've had the first 4 deleted, but they haven't had them deleted. So yes, YouTube does delete loads of comments randomly, and it's really frustrating, and I don't think there's anything I can do about that. It's just YouTube. I'm not deleting them. Mods aren't deleting them, or at least almost always the mods aren't deleting them. So yeah, sorry about that. However, check the filters. That is an important mechanism for seeing whether your comments truly have been deleted. Anyway, back on with my video. I'm adding this on because it keeps getting restricted, and if I change the length of the video and some of the content on it, then it might just rejig it into not restricting the video. Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. Ukraine War News Update, first part there, for the 17th of July 2024. It's been another very quiet day, all things considered, in activity both across the front lines and in terms of strikes across the borders. Yesterday was pretty quiet, today likewise. We'll go through the normal stats. We'll start with the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. 1,110 personnel lost in a single day. That's about where we have seen it. 11 tanks, pretty much hovering around average there for the last few days or so. 9 armoured personnel vehicles, that's down. And 43 artillery systems, although that's over double the daily average, it is still down on where we've seen it for the last few days. So this could possibly suggest a slight downtick in activity. Armoured personnel vehicles are the mainstay of attacks, or at least they have been. You might see an uptick in vehicles and fuel tanks because where you see fewer APVs used, you might see more golf buggies and motorbikes and quads. 1 multiple launch rocket system, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, 61 vehicles and fuel tanks is fairly high there, and 9 pieces of special equipment. So I'm not sure quite what to make. I think that probably suggests a slightly quieter day on the front line. But still, like when you have a slightly quiet day and you're losing 11 tanks and 43 artillery systems and 61 vehicles and fuel tanks, you know things are pretty bad. I don't have Andrew Perpetua's lost stats. They've not come out yet. I do have footage of, because we've seen a number of these from a Russian point of view on Ukrainian targets. Well, this is one on a Russian target. I think they shot quite a few missiles to eventually get this. You've got, if you see here, slightly to the left of the screen, that I think is the part of the battery, the S300, I think, battery. And there are a few missiles that go this way and that. Then eventually you have, so there you've got a cluster munition exploding to the right of it. But I don't know if there are other elements of the battery over there, because later when we zoom in on the battery, there was some smoke. Yeah, here it is. So you've got the battery there. The camera's now moved to the left a bit. Over to the left, something is definitely on fire there. So initially, I think some of these clusters hit to the left, and then they hit pretty much bang on top of the battery, or those three components thereof. A few people talking about this, trying to geolocate it. ATACMS strike on a Russian S-300 air defense system, positions near Manush, Mariupol area, approximately 80 kilometers from the front line. And this was tracking to some explosions we saw at night concerning that area as well, and geolocated near to Mariupol. Others aren't 100% sure. I know someone, Null Reports here, says the attack seems to be different from the one at Mariupol airfield. This S-300 battery was located near Manhush, a bit more west of the airfield. So when it's been linked to the airfield explosions at night there, actually there could be two separate attacks on Russian air defenses there. But anyway, it appears that the cluster munitions have at least largely damaged the S-300 system that was in position there. Air defense battery near Mariupol with ATACMS taken out, destroying at least two launchers and a radar. But then there is that fire already to the left, so I don't know what was going on there. Or that could, I suppose, be just a field fire, not a wildfire, but a fire of the grasslands there. I'm not sure. And then, speaking of fires, here are just two examples of some really significant fires going on in Russia. It's hot in the swamps today, says Null Reports. Fires broken out in a construction materials warehouse covering an area of 1,000 square meters in Krasnodar. And Krasnodar itself has had wildfires ripping through it. Crimea has had wildfires ripping through it. There's a picture of, was it Yevpatoria or somewhere, the people all on the beach, and then just behind the headland is burning. And they're all kind of taking photos of that. So fires are ripping through a number of these places in either occupied Ukraine or in Russia itself. Novotavelzhanka in Belgorod region, open burning of a pine forest there. The fire's getting near to residential houses. So emergency services struggling, especially since, as I've said before, much of the work with tackling such fires was done by conscripts in years gone past. That was one of their kind of jobs. Instead of spending lots of money on extra emergency services during the summer, you would get the conscripted soldiers in peacetime to be working on doing that kind of job. But of course, their attentions are elsewhere, and that means that there are potentially too few people to work on tackling such emergencies. Now, moving on to distance strikes, War Vehicle Tracker has another example of a Russian strike on a Ukrainian target. This is at a Ukrainian training ground for the supposedly the 13th Brigade of Ukrainian National Guard. I think the claim is it up in Kharkiv? This I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Yes, claimed to be near Perezichny in Kharkiv Oblast. But that's without a geolocation, so I'm not 100% sure. And actually, we move away from that and into an area of I don't know, dust tracks and trees and whatnot. And we see from this footage coaches dropping off troops, and then coaches kind of going, and then cuts to this. So I don't know that you've got that yellow coach still in place. and then you have cluster munitions going off all around there. From what I can gather, some injuries because ambulances did come along afterwards. In fact, the footage captures some ambulances coming, some coaches taking away people, and then an ambulance being next to a coach. Yeah, so definitely some casualties. I don't think it's going to be massively bad, but still a training ground has been hit, and that's not good news for the Ukrainians. These medium-range reconnaissance drones really are a huge problem for the Ukrainians, and they know it as well. Other bits and pieces already. So exactly 10 years ago, Russia shot down a Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 over eastern Ukraine with a Buk surface-to-air missile. Was it Jonathan Oliphant, one of the first on the scene there? He's with the Telegraph at the moment. Often contributes to the Ukraine Latest podcast. Was it him? Anyway, he was. It was definitely a British journalist who was one of the first to be on the scene and help to identify that a Buk surface-to-air missile was used. All 298 passengers and crew, of which 196 were Dutch, were killed. A black day the world will never forget, says Noel Reports. And the Dutch, I know JR reached out to me yesterday saying tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of the MH17. So that's going to be quite meaningful in the Netherlands. And it's also largely why the Netherlands is so staunch in their support for Ukraine. This has really scarred them, and rightfully so. 3 people have in absentia been charged with war crimes over this, including Evil Gherkin being one of those. So this is a significant moment, certainly in the Dutch national psyche. And of course, it just shows you as well that it was the Russians who were doing their thing in the supposed freedom fighting and civil war that was taking place in Ukraine. These were Dutch people with insignias taken off their uniforms so that they were indeed the supposed little green men. And the war started in 2014, not in 2022. Now, Russia and Ukraine are set to swap 180 prisoners in a deal that has been brokered by the UAE, according to Bloomberg. And if the deal goes ahead as planned this morning, Ukraine time, so it might well have already happened. Good news for those POWs. Ukraine lists 42,000 citizens in its unified register for persons missing under special circumstances, an Interior Ministry officials said. Ukrinform reported today the register collects data on people who have disappeared due to war, occupational, natural and man-made disasters. So 42,000 people missing. I wonder how many of those are children. And then as part of the hybrid war efforts, personally, I just call it war. Ukrainian intelligence yesterday and cyber volunteers attacked nearly 100 Russian websites, with 39 sites still down as of yesterday. So actually, this happened on the 15th and then was reported yesterday, and still 39 of those sites were down yesterday. The cyber attack targeted companies linked to the Russian state sector involved in the war against Ukraine, including MIT Group, Permplant Prom Equipment, United Crane Technologies and Rumus Lada. The websites now display a pig's head and a 404 error message, and that's what it looks like, suggesting that Russia not found, suggesting that Russia is involved in some kind of genocidal war there. This is super useful. Citizens in Russia need to understand that they are involved in a war. This isn't just something happening over there, something to forget about. Their own citizens are being sent to their deaths by a megalomaniacal, narcissistic dictator, and their citizens need to understand that. And one way of helping them to understand, but also a way of helping to debilitate the Russian war machine, is by doing things like this. And I think that's a very effective for the Ukrainians to do so. Taking down 100 websites means that's a massive project. Due to the heat in Russia, there was an accident at Rostov nuclear power plant and an accident at the thermal power plant in Buryatia. I don't think this is anything more than well, I don't know. Who knows? I doubt sabotage is involved, but you never know. An accident also happened at Balaklava thermal power plant in Sevastopol. So maybe there is sabotage. I'm not sure, but there have apparently been issues due to really high temperatures and heats. One of these is certainly back online. I think it's a Rostov nuclear power plant is back online this morning and operating. But yeah, just to let you know that there have been some power plant issues in Russia. And this signifies the strain on the Russian, I guess, civil infrastructure, because here we have a blackout in Yevpatoria in Crimea last night in the city. As throughout occupied Crimea, there are power outages, and the darkness of Yevpatoria indicates that things are not going as they should in occupied Crimea, as they struggle to maintain normality. Russian companies, says the Kyiv Independent, have exponentially increased their recruiting in Africa. The Russian state-controlled media outlet RBC reported on July the 17th, citing industry data. The data analysed by RBC indicated that 7 of the 10 countries with the highest increase in vacancies posted by Russian companies were in Africa. So they are struggling with filling job vacancies. There is a huge labour shortage in in Russia, as the Russian government has sent many of their, particularly men, off to die in the war in Ukraine. There is this wage spiral increase as there are fewer and fewer people to fill those positions, and so they need those workers. Well, they are not only going to African nations and other nations to increase their supply of humans for these meat assaults. They need boots on the ground in the war effort, but they also need boots on the ground in their various sectors in the economy to keep everything turning, keep those wheels turning. And so they are bringing in people from Africa to do that. And I think that's a sign that, again, when you look at issues with civil infrastructure, issues with filling vacant positions, there are just many problems for the Russians as they continue to prosecute this war 2.5 years after it started. Anyway, that's enough from me. A shorter one today due to a lack of activity in many places. I'm just going to check some of the socials, see if anything has come out. I guess I'll leave you with this, especially in the context of people, say, at the RNC, the Republican National Committee Convention, talking about how Ukraine need to be going to the negotiating table. Then if you're thinking about the Kellogg and Flight's plan for Ukrainian peace negotiations with the Trump administration, bringing on this idea that if you forcing Ukraine to the table, and if you don't go to the table with Russia, then we simply won't, the US this is, give you any more aid. So force them to the table. But this is what the Russians generally think, though. So as Dmitry from War Translated said, the Russians themselves do not hide their true wishes regarding Ukraine. It's not clear why some Western characters think that they know it all, and that supposedly if we make peace now, everything will end instantly. No, gentlemen, this will not end as long as Putin and his junta are alive. They will reap Ukraine, and when they succeed, they will attack Europe. And this is just so some random Russian source here, but this is what we hear from the propagandists. By the way, the propagandists on state TV, I was just seeing, have been wargaming what would happen in a nuclear war, and the UK would be the first to go. We'd have 3 nuclear, we're the weakest, so we'd have 3 nuclear missiles on us, and so on and so forth. And you're like, this is what their thinking is like, and yet we're trying to appease them, or not we, some elements of our societies are trying to appease them. Here The results of negotiations must be confirmed and secured in concrete terms. If we're talking about demilitarization, our military bases, so Russian military bases, should be located along the entire border of Ukraine with Europe. So this is still under the understanding that they control the entirety of Ukraine. The agreement must state and be signed by both parties. The slightest violation by Ukraine, or maybe not control it, maybe have, I don't know, along the entire border of you, they must have military bases inside Ukraine. But if Ukraine is in the slightest violation of its obligations, that will entail, quote, an immediate nuclear strike on Kiev, not otherwise. So it's just like, there is no other way with these people. If they knew how to keep their word and proved it time after time, one signature would be enough. But no, and the West went to Manda with its mediation. Of course, this is just projection because Russia are the ones who have broken every single treaty that they've ever signed. It's just ridiculous. And so on and so forth. It goes on. But goodness me. Right. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. I will get back to you very soon with my further videos for the day.